Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Mr. Gaming Counselor, and we're back with some news for you. This is hot off the press. I just did a video on a double news today, apparently, and I'm on break at lunch, and I came back home for a minute. And here we are. Destiny news for you, Mr. Game Counselor here. Always going to give you the Destiny 2 news whenever possible. Sony, the president, is disappointed in Bungie. Who'd have thunk? Literally said, Hiroki, I'm going to butcher this name, Hiroki Tataki. I'm going to shut my mouth. I'm going to call him HT. The president, Sony president, wants Bungie to be better at assuming accountability. Wow, okay. For development timelines, and says there's room for improvement from a business perspective. It was during the FY23 Q3 earnings call and question and answers. Yeah, people want to know, like, hey, you've got a burning ship on your platform. What's going on about that? And they talk about, yeah, they're enthusiastic. You know, that's great and all, but how you set timelines for development, such as the Funnel Shape, Marathon, all these games, you know, you've delayed, you kind of suck. You kind of got to fix that. And then they say, you've got to be responsible for that. And also, when you use your assets, like it literally says business perspective with regards such as the use of business expenses and assuming accountability. So that tells me, one, Bungie's not using their expenses wisely, the clubs and whatnot, and the new building, which is great that they fired all those people and rehired outsourcing. That's great. They really need that expensive building filled with all the empty rooms. With all those people who lost their jobs. It's great. It's fantastic. But you know it's bad when the president of Sony says you are doing a crap job at setting timelines. You're not meeting expectations. You need to be, and they were talking to management, by the way. Management needs to do a better job at setting timelines. Imagine that. Bungie not setting proper timelines for any of their crap. Also, their expenses suck because Mr. Pete Parsons out there on his yacht burning cash while his boat is burning. Let's see. Wait till he finds out that they under-deliver on purpose. TBH, I think Sony is going to take over Bungie. I feel Bungie hasn't been the same for a while now and they need new leadership. Oh, wow, we didn't know it. Use of business expenses. What does that mean? What were they spending money on? New buildings. Clubs. Man, it sounds like Sony really wants to take over Bungie and make them a true Sony studio like they were for Microsoft. Bro, if they fumble Final Shape, which they set such a high bar for by saying they want it to be better than Taken King, Forsaken, and Witch Queen, they are so cooked. They finding out just how bad Bungie really is might be regretting their deal. I think it is. Translation, get your crap together. Brutal assessment from the Sony head. Finally. It's called fine listening to your community. Although, to be a fair, developer in the past stated that both Joe Blackburn would hear from others about things that either the community or developers wanted, but ended up not doing what he wanted to do instead. But what was this? Most content you see within the last year and a half or so is direct result of what Joe wanted, specifically, not that it was what the studio as a whole was in support of. Hopefully, the new leadership coming in does things better than what we had. From my understanding, and I could be wrong, the Mass Effect design for the armor we got were done long ago and done by an employee that was involved in the community, but ultimately turned down. Yeah, armor that we have to pay for. Also, this just says Joe reaffirms what I said about Joe Blackburn in my Season of the Wish review, that Joe has been in charge of this whole year. The content we've gotten has been crap, and it's because of Joe. So I'm glad he's jumping ship. I'm glad he's no longer part of, but he's no longer going to be part of Bungie because he's done a crap job of content. And the fact that the president of Sony himself does not like what he sees, like, great, you have great emphasis, excite him, is that a word? You have great excitement and you're enthusiastic with your work, but that doesn't mean crap when you're burning expenses and you're not meeting deadlines. Like, I do believe Sony is regretting some of their decision to buy Bungie because Bungie doesn't know what they're doing. Mostly because their leadership sucks. Their leadership is fumbling the bag. So I hope at this point, I do hope that Sony takes over, because I feel like even under Activision, even though we would get more microtransactions, kind of like Diablo and, well, technically that was a Blizzard thing even before Microsoft took over. But like Activision themselves does a lot of microtransactions, but they still put out content. Whether you think it's good content or not, at least they pump out content and they push out stuff. Bungie doesn't have an excuse. You reuse assets. It's a joke. So yeah, I think even under Activision, with all the other studios that we had, like we got Forsaken because of Activision. It was a banger. I feel like if we had that content, even with microtransactions, Destiny would be in a much better state. But we'll never know. We'll never know. I don't know. I thought it was funny. This is going to be a very, very short video. I just thought it was funny that the president of PlayStation came out and said, you know what? You're doing a crap job at your job. Be responsible. The fact that they had to tell them that they have to assume accountability is just baffling to me. That the president of Sony says you have to assume accountability. It means they're not assuming accountability. They aren't being responsible. It's crazy. Like, I have to do my job. I have to meet deadlines. I have to do things, and I can't be like, you know what, whatever. We'll lay off a couple of people. It'll be fine later. No, the person gets laid off is me. The person that gets in trouble is me, because I'm held accountable for myself. But Bungie apparently the leaders of Bungie think that's not applicable to them. Like, the words that are coming out of my mouth are my responsibility. Their choices are their responsibility. Especially when you're talking about Joe Blackburn leading the creative part of Destiny. You can't just blame other people. You have to take your cut of responsibility. You need to be held accountable. And so I hope that this is a message that the leaders take to heart. And I hope this is the Sony president's way of saying, hey, if you can't do your job, I will do your job. And Pete Parson can go out the door. I hope that's what they're implying. I hope that's what happens. I hope that the leadership of Bungie gets kicked out the door, because God, they're trash. But that's just my subjective opinion. Whether you think, I think Destiny is so much at a downhill spiral that you could this season that we have, Season of the Wish, is nothing but reused assets. Like, everything of the mission was just blind well. It's regurgitating content. We're not doing anything new. So I think we're at the bottom right now. I don't think you could go any farther than what we're at. So Sony taking over is just going to be nothing more than an incline, especially if they let companies like God of War or Final Fantasy, like if they get people who are talented to lead Bungie, or in Destiny too, I feel like we can get better content. And does that mean we're gonna have an uptick in microtransactions? If it's a fair trade, I'll take it. You tell me that you're gonna put more of a shopping mall, but you're in exchange you're gonna get better content, I'm all for it. Because right now it's no content, trash content, and we're gonna get more of a shopping mall. That's where we're currently going right now. So if you're gonna make it balanced, I'm okay with that, right? I'm okay with microtransactions in general if there's a balance between actual content that you play versus what's in the store. But when you have it like this, when there's more micro than there is content, I have an issue. But if they can do this where it's relatively even, I'm okay with that. Again, we've had Activision in control. And we had Forsaken. We had Niobe Labs, because we've had these third parties that were helping Bungie from Activision. So let's not act like Activision's the big bad and didn't do anything to make Destiny good. We cannot forget Forsaken was a banger. And that was Activision's help at saving the game. I feel like we need Sony to step in and save the game. But we'll see. I'm Mr. Gaming Counselor. Let me know in the comments down below what you think. Until next time, don't forget to be the best version of yourself. And as always, game out.